Ethan sat in the small shuttle, staring out the window at the vast expanse of space. He had traveled between stars before, but nothing had prepared him for this. Planet Sci-Fi spun slowly beneath the shuttle's hull, its three suns casting golden, pink, and violet light across its surface. Crystal towers jutted into the sky, and strange, floating creatures drifted between them. Moving with elegance and curiosity, he adjusted his uniform, feeling a mixture of pride and nervousness. He had been hired as the caretaker for Princess Liara, the youngest and most mysterious member of Sci-Fi's royal family. The agency that hired him promised a simple job, mostly tending to daily routines and assisting with her needs. They did not mention, however, how complicated a royal alien's life could be, or how unpredictable the princess herself was. The shuttle docked with a soft thud at a landing platform carved from luminous crystal. A pair of tall, elegant aliens awaited him. Their skin shimmered slightly in the sunlight, their eyes reflecting colors that humans could not name. "Welcome to Sci-Fi, human," one said in a melodic voice. "I am Kellen, the chief royal attendant. Follow me, and I will introduce you to Princess Liara." Ethan followed, trying to hide the awe in his eyes. The palace stretched for miles, a combination of delicate crystal spires, glowing gardens, and floating walkways. Gravity here was slightly lighter than Earth's, making each step feel like a gentle hop. Small creatures, some winged and some walking on 6 legs, peeked from behind flowered trees, curiously watching the new human. Finally, they reached a set of massive double doors, carved with symbols that seemed to shift subtly as he looked at them. Kellen paused and bowed slightly. "The princess is waiting inside. Remember, human, Liara is not what most expect. Approach her with respect, but also be prepared for her ways." Ethan swallowed nervously and nodded. The doors slid open silently, revealing a grand chamber bathed in soft, shifting light. And there she was, Princess Liara. She stood in the center of the room, her figure tall and elegant. Her skin a smooth, pale blue that seemed to glow faintly. Her hair flowed like liquid silver, and her eyes large, almond-shaped. And Viola locked on him instantly. "Ah," she said, her voice melodic and slightly teasing. "So you are the human they sent. I expected someone smaller." Her lips curved in a small smile, though her eyes held a sharp, assessing glint. Ethan stepped forward carefully. I am Ethan, your caretaker." "Princess, caretaker," she repeated, rolling the word over her tongue. "Interesting. Tell me, Ethan, do you know what a Zyphran princess requires from a human caretaker?" Ethan hesitated. I assume guidance, daily routines, perhaps some assistance with your activities?" Liara laughed softly, a sound like wind through crystal trees. "Activities? How vague. Let me be clear. I require intelligence, quick thinking, patience, and a certain bravery. Do you think you have these traits, human?" Ethan straightened. "I do my best, princess. I will do everything to fulfill my duties." She studied him a moment longer, her eyes narrowing slightly. "We shall see. Kellen, show him to his quarters. He must rest before beginning his training." The quarters were luxurious, though designed with subtle functionality. The bed was soft and suspended slightly above the ground. Walls shimmered with light patterns that changed based on mood or time of day. Ethan sat on the edge, feeling both out of place and strangely fascinated. His mind buzzed with questions. What exactly did Liara mean by training? How dangerous could caring for a princess be? The next morning, Ethan was summoned to the main chamber. Liara waited, perched gracefully on a raised platform, her expression calm but alert. "Today," she said, "we begin your first test." "Test?" Ethan repeated, trying to mask his unease. Liara's smile widened. "Do not be frightened. This is merely to see how you handle unusual situations. Follow me." They walked through winding corridors to the palace gardens. Here, the plants glowed faintly, and the air was filled with subtle music produced by the wind passing through crystal leaves. In the center of the garden, a creature stirred. It was massive, with a long, serpentine body covered in scales that reflected every color of the sun. Its eyes were large and intelligent, observing Ethan with quiet curiosity. "This is a slifer," One of the palace guardians, Liara explained. It has a temper. Your task is simple. Approach it without fear and lead it to the fountain over there. Ethan's heart pounded. He had never approached a creature like this, and it moved with grace and unpredictability. Remembering his training in observation and calmness, he took slow steps, keeping his hands visible and his voice gentle. The creature's eyes followed every move. Several times, it hissed softly, testing his confidence. Ethan paused, took a deep breath, and continued. Minutes passed. Sweat beaded on his forehead. The sliver moved unpredictably, but Ethan mirrored its movements, never showing fear. Slowly, it began to follow him toward the fountain. Liara observed silently, her expression unreadable. When the creature finally reached the fountain and settled, she clapped her hands lightly. "Well done, human," she said. "You have patience, and you understand subtlety. But remember, this is only the beginning. Sci-Fi is full of surprises, and those who cannot adapt do not last long." Ethan exhaled, feeling a surge of pride. But he also felt something else, an undercurrent of tension. Liara's tests were not merely for amusement. They were to evaluate him. Her eyes sparkled with curiosity, as if she were studying him like the sliver he had just guided. Over the next several days, Ethan's tasks grew more complex. He was asked to navigate the palace's zero-gravity chambers, where he had to repair delicate crystal machinery while floating. He was asked to assist in preparing ceremonial garb made of living fabrics. That shifted based on emotion, and he was expected to anticipate Liara's needs before she spoke them aloud, a challenging feat, given her unpredictable nature. Through all of this, Liara observed him constantly. She never outright praised him, but she allowed small smiles to slip, and her teasing remarks became slightly warmer, though still sharp. "You are slower than a sliver in thought, human," she said one day, "but you have courage. That counts for something." Ethan found himself learning not just about the alien world, but also about Liara herself. She was clever, resourceful, and fiercely independent. She tested him constantly, not to demean him, but to see if he was capable of thinking, acting, and surviving in ways her people often underestimated humans to be. One evening, as the three suns set in brilliant streaks across the horizon, Ethan walked along the palace's floating garden paths. He could see Liara standing at the edge of a crystalline balcony, her silver hair catching the light. She looked at him silently, and for a moment, her eyes seemed less teasing and more thoughtful. "You are persistent, human," she said finally. "Most would have faltered by now, but you endure. That is notable." Ethan bowed slightly. "Thank you, princess. I will continue to do my best." Liara's lips curved into a small, enigmatic smile. "Endurance is only the beginning. On Sci-Fi, understanding is more important than strength. You will need to understand me and this world if you are to survive." Ethan felt a chill, not from fear, but from realization. He had thought this job would be simple. He had thought it would be about schedules, duties, and light care. But Liara's tests, the unpredictability of the palace, and the very nature of Sci-Fi itself made him understand one simple truth. This world would not bend to him. He would have to bend to it and to her. That night, lying on the floating bed, Ethan stared at the ceiling, which reflected the glowing constellations of Sci-Fi's skies. His mind raced with questions, plans, and cautious excitement. What exactly did Liara expect of him next? How far would her tests go? And, most importantly, could he truly earn her trust? Ethan knew one thing for certain. His life on Sci-Fi had just begun, and it would be unlike anything he had ever experienced. The alien princess was clever, unpredictable, and utterly fascinating. And he, a human from a distant star, was now at the center of her world, her playground, her challenge, and perhaps, if he survived, her trusted ally. And somewhere deep inside, Ethan felt a spark of exhilaration. This was not a job. This was an adventure. The next morning, Ethan awoke to the soft glow of Sci-Fi's three suns filling his quarters. His body still felt the light stiffness from yesterday's challenges, yet his mind buzzed with anticipation. Today, he knew, would bring new tests from Princess Liara. The palace seemed alive with quiet energy, the gentle hum of floating crystals, the distant calls of exotic creatures, and the subtle, shifting patterns of light on the walls created a sense that the world itself was watching him. Kellen met him at the door. "Princess Liara waits in the eastern garden," the attendant said. His voice, though calm, carried an unspoken warning. "She has prepared something unusual today. You must be alert." Ethan followed, stepping carefully along the crystalline walkways. The air was crisp, scented with the faint aroma of glowing flowers, and filled with soft notes that seemed like music but were made by the wind. Passing through the palace's crystal architecture, his heart beat faster as he approached the eastern garden, a place unlike the central palace gardens he had seen yesterday. Here, plants floated midair, their roots exposed, and streams of liquid light ran along the ground. Twisting and turning like living rivers, Liara stood at the center, arms folded, her silver hair flowing around her shoulders. Her violet eyes caught his immediately. "Good morning, human," she said, her voice both teasing and commanding. "I hope you slept well. If not, perhaps that is for the better. You will need your energy today." Ethan nodded. "I am ready, Princess." Liara's lips curved into a faint, knowing smile. "We begin with observation and improvisation. You will assist the Thrina birds in building their nest. But there's a challenge. The birds are highly intelligent and dislike human interference. They will test your patience. Fail, and you will learn something the hard way." Ethan blinked. Birds. He had worked with animals before, but nothing like this. The Thrina birds were large, their feathers shimmering like liquid silver, and their eyes sharp with intelligence. They moved in intricate patterns, weaving thin strands of crystal and plant fibers into elaborate shapes. Ethan approached slowly, remembering yesterday's lesson with the sliver. Calm, steady movements, and careful observation were key. At first, the birds scattered, their wings flashing in the morning sun. Ethan held out his hands and spoke in gentle tones, mimicking the soft coos he had been instructed to use. Slowly, a few of the younger birds approached him, inspecting his movements. He learned quickly that each bird had its own temperament. Some were cautious, some playful, and some downright stubborn. Minutes turned into hours. Ethan adjusted, observed, and adapted. When a Thrina bird began weaving the wrong pattern, he carefully corrected it, mimicking their motions rather than forcing them. Liara watched silently from above, her expression unreadable, though a faint flicker of amusement crossed her face. When one bird tried to tug him into a playful chase, finally, the nest took shape, a delicate, floating structure that glimmered in the sunlight. The Thrina birds circled Ethan briefly before flying away, chirping in approval. Liara clapped her hands lightly. "Not bad, human. You can follow instructions, but more importantly, you learn. That is what separates those who survive from those who fail. Remember this lesson well." Ethan bowed slightly. "Thank you, Princess." Liara waved a hand, dismissing him. "Rest for a moment. Then we continue." Even as he rested, Ethan felt the tension of the day linger. Sci-Fi was not a world of predictable challenges. Every task required quick thinking and adaptation. The princess's tests were subtle but demanding, and he began to understand that Liara's teasing and mischief were a form of evaluation. After a brief pause, Liara summoned him again, this time to the palace's gravity chambers. The room was massive, cylindrical, with floating platforms and shimmering walls. Gravity here could be adjusted, and Liara said it low. "Your next task," she explained, "is to repair the energy conduits on the upper platforms. They are delicate and require precision. One mistake could disrupt the entire chamber." Ethan nodded, his pulse quickening. Floating in the chamber felt strange. Every movement multiplied in distance and speed. He grabbed hold of the platforms carefully, moving from one to another, tools in hand. The conduits hummed faintly, emitting soft pulses of light. One slip could knock a platform off balance. Liara observed silently from the central platform, her expression unreadable. She occasionally called out cryptic hints, testing his response. "Too fast, human. Think before you act." Ethan adjusted, focusing entirely on precision and timing. Hours passed as he repaired the conduits, his mind fully engaged. Sweat ran down his brow, but he did not falter. When he completed the task, Liara finally descended to the lower platform. "Well done," she said simply. "You have skill, focus, and persistence. But remember, intelligence matters more than skill. How you think, not just what you do, defines your worth here." Ethan exhaled, feeling a mixture of relief and pride. He began to see a pattern. Liara's tests were not merely about physical or mental ability. They were about adaptation, courage, and intelligence under pressure. The day continued with smaller tasks, each designed to challenge him differently. He was asked to prepare ceremonial garments from living fabrics that responded to emotion. At first, the fabrics twisted and shifted, reacting unpredictably to his touch. Ethan experimented carefully, learning to anticipate their responses and adjusting his movements with subtlety. Liara watched, amused, and occasionally offered cryptic comments like, "You are slower than expected, but persistent. That is curious." Ethan started noticing other subtle lessons. The palace was filled with hidden pathways and secret rooms, some designed to hide important objects, others to test one's awareness. Every step required observation, patience, and courage. Liara's tests taught him that survival in Sci-Fi required both intelligence and adaptability. As the suns began to set, painting the sky with brilliant shades of pink, gold, and violet, Liara led Ethan to the palace's floating bridge, suspended over a river of liquid light. "You have done well today, human," she said, her tone softer now, though still teasing. "But the most important lesson is not skill, patience, or courage. It is understanding. Can you understand me? Can you understand this world?" Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "I will do my best, princess. I want to understand." Liara smiled faintly. "Good. That is the beginning. Sci-Fi does not bend to those who fail to observe, to adapt, to think. Remember this well." The evening ended with a quiet walk through the palace gardens. Ethan observed the glowing plants, the strange creatures, and the light patterns that seemed to shift with emotion. He realized that every challenge he faced was also a lesson in patience, perception, and thought. The princess was clever, unpredictable, and always a step ahead, but she had also begun to respect his perseverance and intelligence, even if she did not say so directly. Before he returned to his quarters, Liara paused and looked at him directly. "Ethan," she said, her voice soft but firm, "the trials are far from over. You have survived today, but tomorrow will require more than skill. You will need courage, cleverness, and the ability to anticipate what you cannot see. Are you prepared?" Ethan straightened, determination rising in his chest. "Yes, princess, I am prepared." Liara's smile widened, but it held that same mysterious edge. "Good. I will enjoy watching your progress. Human, you are." Intriguing. As Ethan walked back to his quarters, he reflected on the day's lessons. Liara was not merely testing his physical or mental abilities. She was testing his adaptability, his courage, and his intelligence. Every task, every subtle observation, and every tease was designed to teach him something vital. Survival in Sci-Fi required more than strength, it required understanding. Lying in his floating bed that night, Ethan stared at the shifting constellations reflected on the ceiling. His mind replayed every challenge, every glance from Liara, and every subtle test. He realized that this job was far more than caretaking. It was an education in survival, intelligence, and human perseverance against an alien world unlike anything he had ever known. Somewhere deep inside, a spark of excitement burned. The challenges were difficult, unpredictable, and sometimes dangerous, but they were also thrilling. He was not just a caretaker. He was a participant in a game of wit, courage, and survival. And the prize, if he could earn it, was trust, respect, and perhaps something even more profound from the alien princess. Ethan closed his eyes, ready for tomorrow. The adventure had only begun, and he knew that the days ahead would push him in ways he had never imagined. But he was determined. Sci-Fi was strange, Liara was unpredictable, and the world was full of surprises, but he would endure. He would adapt, and he would prove that a human could not only survive but thrive. even in the heart of an alien princess's domain. The morning suns rose over Zyphara, spilling light across the floating crystal towers. Ethan stepped out of his quarters, feeling a quiet tension in the air. Today was different. Yesterday had tested his skill and patience, but today, he sensed, would probe something deeper the mind and heart of Princess Liara. Kellen met him at the doors, his expression calm but serious. Princess Liara has prepared a special exercise for you today, human. It will require not only courage and intelligence, but also understanding of her nature. Proceed carefully. Ethan nodded, determination in his eyes. He had grown accustomed to the palace's challenges, learning quickly that observation and patience were as vital as skill. But something about this felt more personal, more probing. Liara awaited him in the palace library, a vast room stretching 3 levels high, filled with floating shelves of crystal-bound tomes, holographic archives, and small floating lights that guided visitors. She sat cross-legged on a floating platform, her silver hair cascading over her shoulders like liquid starlight. "Good morning, Ethan," she said, her violet eyes studying him with keen curiosity. "Today's trial is less about physical ability and more about comprehension. You will explore these archives and retrieve a set of historical records. But there is a challenge: the records are hidden, encrypted with puzzles only a careful mind can solve." Ethan's heart raced. He had handled puzzles before, but nothing like this. The Zyphran archives were legendary for their complexity, designed to protect secrets that even many of their own scholars struggled to access. Liara floated upward slightly, a teasing smile on her face. "Do not worry, human. If you cannot solve the puzzles, I will watch with interest, and perhaps amusement. But if you succeed, you will gain knowledge few humans ever acquire." Ethan moved among the floating shelves, studying symbols that shifted subtly under his gaze. Every tome seemed to respond to thought and motion, opening doors only when he approached with careful reasoning. Hours passed as he deciphered codes, traced glowing patterns, and pieced together the hidden paths through the archives. Liara watched silently, occasionally offering cryptic hints. Finally, after what felt like endless concentration, Ethan uncovered the requested historical records. They contained detailed accounts of Zyphar's ancient diplomacy, cultural rituals, and the lineage of the royal family. But buried within them were also subtle hints about Liara herself, her decisions, her careful management of political challenges, and the reasons for her cautious treatment of outsiders, especially humans. Ethan presented the records to Liara, holding his breath. Her eyes studied him carefully before she spoke. "Impressive, human. You have not only solved the puzzles, but also demonstrated patience and insight. But the lesson here is not in the records themselves, it is in understanding why you were tested. Why I test humans the way I do." Ethan tilted his head, curious. "Why, princess?" Liara floated down to the floor, moving closer, her expression softer now. "Humans are rare in this part of the galaxy. Most are fragile, easily broken by the complexity of our world. But some possess qualities that my people admire: courage, cleverness, adaptability. My tests are not meant to torment. They are meant to reveal character. And you, Ethan, have shown that you are capable of understanding, learning, and adapting. That is what matters most." Ethan felt a strange warmth. He had feared her tests were cruel, but now he realized they were a form of guidance and assessment of his worthiness. I understand, princess. I will continue to learn and adapt." Liara's lips curved in a faint, approving smile. "Good, but understanding is not enough. You must also act wisely, especially when facing challenges that cannot be solved by logic alone." No sooner had she spoken than a warning alarm rang throughout the palace. A deep, vibrating hum echoed through the crystal walls. Liara's expression hardened instantly. "That was unexpected. Kellen, alert the palace security." "Ethan, follow me." They hurried through twisting corridors, the soft glow of the palace now flashing in urgent patterns. Liara led him to a secure observation room, where the screens displayed movement near the palace gates. A rogue faction, long thought to be distant, had infiltrated the outer defenses. Their aim was clear. They wanted Liara captured to gain leverage over Sci-Fi. Ethan felt a surge of adrenaline. This was no puzzle. This was real danger. Liara turned to him. You will need to trust your instincts, human. Observe, anticipate, and act. Can you do this? Ethan nodded firmly. Yes, princess. I will do everything I can to help. Together, they moved through hidden corridors and maintenance tunnels. Liara's knowledge of the palace's secret paths was unmatched. She led Ethan with precise movements, her every step a lesson in awareness. The corridors were filled with shifting lights and floating platforms, each designed to protect the palace from intruders. Ethan relied on his observations and quick thinking, remembering every lesson Liara had indirectly taught him: patience, perception, and adaptability. They encountered the first group of intruders near the upper garden. Ethan froze. At first there were too many, and they were heavily armed with alien technology. Liara's hand brushed against his arm, a subtle signal to remain calm. Then, with a whisper, she outlined a path that would allow them to bypass the intruders without detection. Ethan followed, heart pounding, careful not to make a sound. As they moved, Ethan began to notice patterns in the intruders' movements. He suggested a small distraction, a carefully thrown energy crystal that shimmered and produced a sound on the opposite side of the corridor. Liara raised an eyebrow, impressed, and allowed him to act. The intruders turned away, giving them the chance to slip past unnoticed. Hours passed in tense maneuvering through the palace. Ethan guided Liara through corridors she had known intimately for years, using his unique human perspective to spot weaknesses and opportunities she had not considered. Together, they avoided ambushes, navigated complex security systems, and reached the palace inner sanctum. Finally, they paused in a hidden observation chamber overlooking the main hall. Ethan looked at Liara, her expression a mixture of relief and admiration. You acted wisely, she said. You not only survived my test in the archives, but have also proven your ability to respond under real danger. That is rare. Even among my own people. Ethan exhaled, his body trembling from adrenaline. I just did what I thought was right, princess. Liara's gaze softened slightly. And that is why you have earned my respect. My tests are many, human, and they are designed not to break you, but to reveal your qualities: courage, intelligence, and adaptability. You have them in abundance. That is why I continue to involve you in my world. As the sun set, Ethan and Liara remained in the observation chamber. The palace, once a place of challenge and trial, now seemed like a living entity they were navigating together. Ethan realized that the bond forming between him and Liara was built not on casual friendship, but on mutual understanding, respect, and shared experience. Ethan, Liara said after a moment of silence, there's one truth I must share. Humans are unusual to my people. We rarely trust them so quickly. You have survived trials that would have broken others. You are clever, resilient, and courageous. That is why I watch you, test you, and perhaps why I find you intriguing. Ethan felt a mixture of pride and curiosity. He had thought he was here merely as a caretaker, a helper. Now he realized he was becoming a participant in something far larger, a partnership of sorts. Built on trust, skill, and insight, Liara's expression became unreadable again, her violet eyes glinting with mischief. Do not think that you are safe yet, human. My tests are far from over. There are layers to my world and to myself that even you cannot fully grasp yet. But know this: your ingenuity and courage have not gone unnoticed. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, and I expect you to continue proving yourself. Ethan nodded. He had learned that survival on Sci-Fi was not about simple obedience. It was about understanding, adaptation, and quick thinking. He had faced both puzzles and danger, and he had discovered that Liara's teasing, her mischief, and her seemingly difficult tests were all part of a greater design to assess his worth, his character, and his ability to survive and perhaps even thrive in her world. That night, lying on his floating bed, Ethan reflected on the day's events. He had uncovered secrets of Sci-Fi, demonstrated intelligence and courage, and survived real danger. Yet he knew the greatest challenges were still ahead. Liara was clever, unpredictable, and constantly testing him. Not to harm, but to guide. A spark of excitement burned within him. This was no longer just a job, it was a journey of discovery, courage, and understanding. Ethan was learning what it meant to navigate an alien world, to earn the trust of an alien princess, and to prove that a human could not only survive, but excel where others might fail. He closed his eyes, ready for tomorrow's trials, knowing that each day brought new lessons and new opportunities to demonstrate his worth. The adventure on Sci-Fi was far from over, and Ethan felt more determined than ever to rise to the challenge. The suns rose over Sci-Fi, painting the crystal towers in hues of gold, pink, and violet. Ethan stepped out of his quarters, feeling a mix of anticipation and determination. Today, he knew, was the day that would define his place in the palace and with Princess Liara. The trials of the past days had tested his skill, courage, and intelligence. But now, the challenge was not only about survival, it was about proving himself as a reliable ally. Worthy of trust and respect, Kellen met him at the quarter. "The princess has a special task for you today, human," he said, his voice calm yet serious. "It will test your judgment, courage, and adaptability. Prepare yourself." Ethan nodded, steadying his nerves. He had grown accustomed to the palace's unusual lessons, and each challenge had strengthened him. He had learned to observe carefully, to act wisely, and to adapt to situations that were unpredictable and often dangerous. When he arrived at the palace courtyard, Liara was waiting. Her silver hair shimmered in the morning light, and her violet eyes sparkled with anticipation. She stood near a hovering platform that displayed a map of the palace and its surrounding areas. "Ethan," she said, her voice calm but commanding, "today's trial is both practical and strategic. An unexpected faction has attempted to breach the palace defenses once again. You will assist me in neutralizing the threat not through brute force, but through clever strategy and careful action." Ethan's pulse quickened. This was no puzzle or routine task, this was real action, with real stakes. "I understand, princess," he said firmly. Liara smiled faintly, a mixture of amusement and approval in her gaze. "Good, you have observed, learned, and adapted. Now let us see how well you act under pressure." They moved swiftly through the palace corridors, taking hidden passages that bypassed the main patrols. Ethan relied on every lesson he had learned, careful observation, anticipating movements, and thinking several steps ahead. Liara guided him subtly, her instructions precise yet minimal, allowing him to make decisions on his own dot as they approached the main courtyard. Ethan spotted the intruders heavily armed and moving with coordinated precision. Liara whispered instructions, signaling him to create a distraction. Ethan quickly analyzed the situation and noticed a cluster of energy crystals nearby. With careful aim, he activated them, sending a bright flash of light and sound across the courtyard. The intruders paused, momentarily disoriented. Liara seized the opportunity. With a series of graceful movements, she activated the palace's defensive mechanisms. Energy barriers rose, guiding the intruders into isolated zones where they could be contained without harm. Ethan followed her lead, assisting by redirecting devices and managing the flow of the barriers. Together, they moved like a well-coordinated team, human and princess. Intuition and intelligence combined, the intruders, confused and trapped, soon surrendered. Liara deactivated the barriers, and the courtyard fell silent, save for the soft hum of the palace crystals. She turned to Ethan, her expression unreadable at first, then softened. "You acted well, human. Not only did you respond with courage and intelligence, but you also anticipated what I could not see immediately. That is the mark of understanding and partnership." Ethan exhaled, relief and pride mingling. "Thank you, princess. I only did what I thought was right." Liara's smile grew, warm yet still playful. "And that is why you have earned my respect. You are more than a caretaker. You are observant, clever, and courageous. You are reliable." Over the next hours, Liara introduced Ethan to additional responsibilities, advising her on palace security, managing minor disputes among staff, and assisting in diplomatic correspondence. Each task was designed to test his judgment and adaptability. but also to teach him how to think like a Zyphrin. Ethan realized that the princess's tests were always layered practical challenges, mixed with lessons in understanding, strategy, and insight. As the suns began to set, Liara led Ethan to the palace's highest balcony. Below, the crystal city glimmered in the evening light, streams of luminescent energy winding between buildings and gardens. The air was calm, filled with the subtle hum of the palace and the soft calls of distant creatures. "You have done well, Ethan," Liara said, her voice soft and melodic. "In the days since your arrival, you have adapted, learned, and demonstrated qualities that few humans possess. Courage, intelligence, patience, and insight. All are rare among your kind." Ethan bowed slightly, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. "I am honored, Princess. I have learned much from you in this world. I will continue to serve and learn." Liara floated closer, her expression thoughtful. "You have learned to understand my world, human. But the greatest lesson is not in what you do, but in how you think, how you observe, and how you respond. That is why I have involved you in these trials, and now, you have proven yourself worthy of trust, for the first time." Ethan felt that the distance between caretaker and princess had narrowed. Their relationship, once formal and distant, had evolved into mutual respect. Liara still teased and challenged him, but her tone now carried warmth, and Ethan responded with confidence and insight rather than uncertainty. Suddenly, Kellen approached, bowing deeply. "Princess, the palace council awaits. They wish to recognize the human who aided in the neutralization of the intruders." Liara's eyes sparkled. She turned to Ethan. "Come, let us show them that a human can indeed rise to the challenges of Zyphara." In the council chamber, elders and advisors looked on as Liara introduced Ethan. "This human," she said, her voice commanding and proud, "has proven himself capable of understanding and acting wisely in my world. He has demonstrated courage, intelligence, and adaptability that surpass many of my own people. He has earned my trust and my respect." Ethan felt a mixture of pride and humility as the council nodded in acknowledgement. Some were cautious, unsure of the human's presence, but Liara's endorsement was enough to command their respect. He realized that his journey had taken him from a simple caretaker to a valued ally, a human who had proven himself in an alien world. After the council meeting, Liara and Ethan returned to the palace balcony. The city shimmered below, calm and peaceful after the day's events. "You see, human," Liara said, her tone softer now, "understanding, courage, and intelligence are what matter most. You have shown all three. That is why I continue to involve you in my world, and that is why I find your presence both necessary and intriguing." Ethan smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment and connection. "Thank you, Princess. I will continue to learn, adapt, and assist." Liara's eyes softened, a rare warmth behind her usual playful sharpness. "Good. Tomorrow, and every day after, will bring new challenges. But know this: you have proven yourself capable, and you have earned a place here, not just as a caretaker, but as a trusted ally. That is rare, invaluable." As night fell, Ethan returned to his quarters, reflecting on the journey he had taken. He had arrived on Zyphara uncertain, nervous, and inexperienced. He had faced puzzles, tests, and real danger. He had learned to observe, adapt, and think like the princess and her people. He had survived challenges that would have broken many others, and in doing so, he had earned trust, respect, and the beginnings of a unique partnership with Liara. Lying on his floating bed, Ethan gazed at the reflected stars above. He understood that Zyphara was more than a palace. More than a city, it was a world that demanded intelligence, courage, and insight. And Princess Liara, with her clever tests and unpredictable nature, had become both teacher and companion in this journey. A soft chime signaled a message from Liara. He opened it and read the simple words, "Rest well. Ethan, tomorrow will bring new lessons, and I look forward to seeing how you continue to adapt." Ethan smiled. The journey was far from over, but he was ready. He had proven that a human could survive and even thrive in a world designed for alien brilliance. He had learned to navigate challenges, earn trust, and demonstrate the qualities that made humans remarkable. In the quiet of the night, as Zyfar's 3 moons cast silver light over the crystal towers, Ethan realized a profound truth. He was no longer just a caretaker. He was a partner, a trusted ally, and a human who had proven that courage, intelligence, and adaptability could bridge worlds. And somewhere in the distance, Princess Liara watched from her tower, her violet eyes reflecting both amusement and admiration. Ethan had survived her tests, learned her lessons, and earned her trust. The adventure was only beginning, but for the first time, he felt that he truly belonged not just in her palace, but in her world. The suns and moons would rise again. Challenges would come, and trials would test him still. But Ethan was ready. For the first time, he understood what it meant to thrive in an alien world, to think, to observe, to adapt, and to earn respect through action, courage, and intelligence. And in that understanding, he knew that his life on Zyfar would never be ordinary again.